thought I would sit down and put some thoughts together. Maybe a longer video rather than a short. Some of the topics that have been in course lately have been interrogative analysis, which you know pretty well by now, but also numerical analysis, which perhaps is not as clear. Going back to Nietzsche, perhaps the fundamental philosophical problem is nihilism, a psychological and political malaise. Life is pointless. Nothing has any value. Nothing is worth doing among the professions offered to you in a bourgeois democracy. Sure. However, it's symptomatic. If nothing is worth doing, then previously something was worth doing. A glorious life was possible. The knighthood, war, crusades, whatever your culture. And how is it that things were worth doing, that is, deeds were worth trying for, which really means they're worth risking death? Climbing a mountain, for example, to be first, Mount Everest, first from the moon, and so on. It's an historical condition. But that's the end of that thread. I can't really continue it. What I can say is that previously, really generalizing, first idea of any philosophy or kind of theology was God. It's the condition of monotheism. That the being, be it an individual thing, who, what, why, be it an individual or a concept. Before monotheism, the gods are more so a concept in the sense that you could ask, well, is Apollo a god? Is Dionysus a god? Yes, of course. It's a plural concept. Why is this important? The simple answer is that owing to some historical transition, the gods, or concept God, evolved from a plural concept to a singular concept. This is the natural number of the concept, whether it's poly or mono, many or one, plural or singleton. There are lots of synonyms in this case. And you can have cases in between, hybrid. When a politician invokes science to warn you that your thoughts are, of course, out of line against the, you can fill in the blank, but it's invoked as though it were one single thing, like a human political movement. Human, universal, even though it's aiming nonetheless to partition between good and evil. So it wants a monopoly on good rather than setting itself apart according to an elite breed, for example. Something that distinguishes itself from others rather than, etc., etc. But the point of the video was to refresh these concepts: interrogative analysis and numerical analysis. The latter is pretty much calling out singleton invocations of concepts that resemble a substitute gratification for monotheistic worship. Yes, I just said that. Is there a simpler way to say it? I think it's a transfer of wealth from God, be it the individual or the concept, unto another concept. A repricing of another concept to fulfill the role of the pillar, the foundation, the substance, the cornerstone, etc. Most important thing, concept, idea. I'm not really sure. And I think that various concepts play this role of substitution for monotheistic God. In the I don't know, they call for worship or they call for reverence, or by saying it, you can command reverence and importance. So, what? Out of any context, the context is also one of those loaded concepts that you can really command people with. You can bypass their rational criticism by saying science, ironically. You can say science, ironically, to bypass other people's science or exercise of reason, actually criticize what you're saying. It works magical over their minds. And yeah, space is one of the concepts, time, the universe. It evokes a kind of largeness, but largeness relative to what? Yeah, you can fill in the blank. It could go on, but it'd be another digression in a digression. So numerical analysis is really detection of monads. Monad is a singleton concept, a concept with one member. To detect and attempt to reconceive monotheism covertly without accurately saying so is number one. But number two, maybe the concept you've elected to replace the gods isn't actually optimal for your future performance. Doesn't actually increase your power. So that's I think that's what's at stake. It's part of a knowledge or a philosophy that doesn't really grant the fulfillment of a project that, again, would make you wealthier, or more generally, more powerful, like a war. The war could be totally destructive, but you might like the result in the end, even if we're all living in caves in the end. But you won, man, you won. So, yeah, so it's important to conceive of goals independent of bourgeois civilization. Give me a better synonym if you can think of it. Yeah, pretend you don't know what I mean by that. So that's kind of a brain dump that we're thinking about. I was just about to close the video, but I do want to suggest that interrogative analysis, because as a writer, this kind of analysis can help you prune duplicate thoughts that you thought were unique, and it can also help you liken your complete sentences unto sentences said by your enemy, or just an ideology of an opposition you thought you opposed, but you can detect co-valuation with your enemies and therefore evolve faster, at least negatively, away from them to facilitate the possibility of creating something unique and new. How would you say that easier? I don't know. So that's one point of interrogative analysis. So it's not just philosophy. It's the way you can review your notes, the way you can criticize your notes without waiting for others to criticize. I mean, it's deeper than I think what other people are going to say. But to do it, you need to be relaxed, well rested. I think caffeinated in the morning, it helps. Fasted. So it's a philosophical activity that you can do. It's the praxis, which is a practice, of the philosophical life that you can kind of do atomically. You don't have to necessarily totally retreat from inane, banal, jeune bourgeois society, democracy, and so on. That'd be nice, but again, we want to empower ourselves, not be consistent with an ideology opposing what we hate. So, yeah, we don't want to be choosy with our means towards our end. Maybe if our goal was to destroy something terrible, maybe, I don't know, joining that team or identifying with it nonetheless moved us closer towards our goal, which is some kind of empowerment, very generally, but not in particular. So you need to balance it with particular projects that are actually achievable. So I think, am I successful? Yeah. So interrogative analysis, it's a skill. So at some point, yeah, as stupid as it sounds, it's also a product. How is it a product? Because you could coach yourself and maybe somebody else in this skill. You could say, well, this is a way to take your take your thinking to the next level. Not necessarily creatively, but at least self critically. You can criticize yourself deeper to the core faster than, an enemy that totally hates you and wants to, crush you to powder. But you're going to actually discover your weaknesses, I think, faster than your most hated critic or hateful. And that's one advantage. And I think it's a simple thing. I've never come across it in my philosophical studies, at least of more classic philosophers. The other one, numerical analysis, which I think in plain English is just detection of monads. My friend Ray Dalio, for example, he always says evolution, invoking it singularly so seriously. And there's some sense in that, because I myself have said, well, what about action as first idea? Because action resembles a complete sentence, of which the question kinds, interrogative aspects, are just that, the faces of the sentence. Who, whom, why, where, when. All these dimensions of the sentence may be actually secondary to action itself. Action itself might happen, or you might do it without being anybody, but by doing it, you become somebody. But that sounds temporal, so it requires a way and a time going on, yet the great action can be a rupture in a seemingly singular time, inaugurating a new when, like a new morning, and deleting all past. Oblivion, amnesia, etc. Throw the synonyms again around, whatever. So this is a kind of skill to diagnose recrudescence of monotheism, if that's a bad thing. Why is it a bad thing? Well, if it's covert and you're talking about the world or the universe rather than the creator of all possible regions, if you are accepting that region has to have a singleton concept, then I think you're, if you want it to be theological, diminishing the greatness of God, who, as a being or as a concept, should be the only singleton. But, dangerous implication, then truth, beauty, goodness are suddenly just plural concepts, and he doesn't care about any of these. Let tribes of mankind throw their conflicting ideas of beauty and goodness at each other and make war unto annihilation or oblivion or whatever, or the birth of the Superman. Who cares? It's all just a game. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Let's watch. Spill the blood, drink the wine. Numerical analysis is this kind of skill. It's kind of like psychoanalysis, but you look at how concepts are evoked, whether they're thought of as singletons or they're made plural. So you can fight against a singleton by making it plural. You can multivert universe, for example. And I consider worlds or universes to be many, but you're still acquiescing to a total spatial concept, a spatial singleton, by so doing that, by saying universe or the world, or, well, maybe there are many worlds. Well, there are, the there in that modern language expression attests to yet another spatial singleton. So you're participating in, I don't know, you agree with a transfer of total wealth, total how much, to, or from, rather, from God, whether God is who, whence, why. I'm not sure which one to throw it in, but it's one of those. It's not a where, because God created heaven and earth in Genesis, for example, two distinct regions rather than a singular region. So the unmade short that I wanted to make is, with a provocative title, is, did God really create the world? Well, no, not according to the Bible, because world is not a singular concept. If you read the New Testament precisely, world is usually invoked as this world or the other world. It's either dual, special case of plural, or simply plural. So, and the stupid question is, I'm not sure if stupid is the right word, because, keep joking until you have an idea. Throw out the bad ideas, denude yourself publicly. Could numerical analysis become, dare I say, a product? Could as a skill, could it be a product? Could it be coached? And why is it a big deal that these kinds of analysis of reviewing your own notes are actually skills? They're actually practices you can do. You don't just say, oh, I have my philosophy and it's all just ideology. But what can I do to think better like you? Supposing you do think better at all. I can always say, well, you can meditate, you can fast, but anyone can say that. These are known praxes or philosophical practices. If